From the mists of antiquity emerges a tale of unparalleled heroism, love, and devastating war. A city, its walls unyielding, stood defiant for a decade against a formidable Greek alliance. This is the story of Troy, a name synonymous with epic conflict and tragic fate. For millennia, it existed primarily within the verses of an ancient poet, Homer. Was it merely a powerful allegory? Or did a real city, a real war, truly inspire such an enduring legend? The line between myth and memory, between fantasy and forgotten fact, has always been exquisitely thin. We begin our quest at that elusive boundary. Homer's Iliad, a foundational text of Western civilization, plunged generations into the heart of the Trojan War. For many, it was more than just poetry, it was a window, albeit clouded, into a past age of heroes and divine intervention. The vivid descriptions, the clashing bronze, the speeches of kings, they painted a picture so compelling, so seemingly real, that its influence shaped art, literature, and even political thought for centuries. But a critical question persisted: how much of this grand narrative was pure invention? How much, a distant echo of truth? Within the Iliad's pages, gods descended from Olympus to sway the tides of battle. Heroes like Achilles and Hector met in fateful duels, and the beauty of Helen sparked a conflict that devastated nations. The human drama, intertwined with the supernatural, made the story unforgettable. It was a narrative framework that seemed almost too perfect, too symmetrically tragic, to be plucked from mere reality. Yet, the longing for its truth, for the confirmation of these legendary figures, never truly faded. Could such monumental events truly have unfolded on a mortal plane? Perhaps the most iconic symbol of the Trojan War, the wooden horse, epitomizes the cleverness and desperation of the Greek siege. A gift of supposed peace, it concealed the very warriors destined to breach Troy's impenetrable defenses. Its story is a testament to deception, a legendary act of stratagem. But did such an audacious feat truly occur? Or was it the brilliant embellishment of a poet, seeking to explain the fall of an impossibly strong city? For generations, this enduring image blurred the lines, challenging belief, yet captivating the imagination. For centuries, the existence of Troy was largely accepted as historical fact, albeit shrouded in poetic license. Scholars and chroniclers, from antiquity onwards, treated Homer's work with a reverence that often bypassed critical scrutiny. But with the Enlightenment and the rise of scientific inquiry, skepticism began to chip away at the legend. Could such a powerful, wealthy city simply vanish without a trace? Could an epic poem truly serve as a historical document? Many intellectuals concluded Troy was a glorious fiction, a product of pure poetic imagination. Its truth, if it ever existed, was lost to time. The physical landscape itself presented a puzzle. Where exactly might this fabled city have stood? The region Homer described, the Troad in northwestern Anatolia, offered few obvious candidates that matched the epic's grandeur. Rivers had changed course, coastlines had shifted, and layer upon layer of human settlement had obscured earlier traces. The very ground seemed to guard its secrets fiercely, burying evidence deeper with each passing century. The question was not just if Troy existed, but where to even begin looking for a place that seemed to actively resist discovery. The dilemma was profound: accept Troy as a powerful myth, or embark on a seemingly impossible quest for a historical kernel within the epic poem. The consensus leaned heavily towards myth. Yet, for some, the intricate details, the geographical references, the very conviction within Homer's verses, whispered of something more. Was it possible that a vibrant memory of a real place, a real conflict, had been transmuted through oral tradition into the shimmering tapestry of the Iliad? This fundamental question hung over the scholarly world, a challenge to those few who dared to dream otherwise. In the midst of this academic skepticism, a lone figure emerged, driven not by conventional scholarship, but by an unwavering, almost childlike, belief in Homer. His name was Heinrich Schliemann. Born into poverty in 19th-century Germany, his destiny would be inextricably linked to the legendary city. From a young age, the tales of the Iliad captivated his imagination, igniting a spark that would burn fiercely throughout his life. He was not a trained archaeologist, but a self-made man with an extraordinary conviction: Troy was real, and he would find it. The seed was planted early. As a 7-year-old, Schliemann was enthralled by a picture of Troy in flames, vividly illustrated in a book of world history. His father, a pastor, recounted the stories of its heroes, of the Trojan horse, of the city's tragic fall. Young Heinrich declared, with absolute certainty, that one day he would dig for Troy. This was not a passing fancy but a profound vow, deeply etched into his psyche. This improbable promise, made by a boy with few prospects, would set the stage for one of history's most remarkable archaeological adventures. Despite his grand dreams, reality dictated a different path initially. Schliemann endured years of hardship, working as a cabin boy, a shop assistant, and a bookkeeper. But he possessed an extraordinary gift for languages and an insatiable ambition for success. He mastered numerous languages, often in mere weeks, and built a vast mercantile empire, trading in indigo, tea, and gold. His focus was singular: amass a fortune, sufficient to fund his true life's mission. The quest for wealth was merely a means to an ancient, legendary end. Every coin earned, a step closer to Troy. By his late 40s, Schliemann was a rich man, a self-made millionaire in an era of burgeoning industrialism. He had achieved financial independence, yet his true desire remained unfulfilled. The allure of ancient history, specifically the Homeric world, overshadowed all material wealth. He retired from business, not to leisure, but to dedicate his remaining years, and his considerable fortune, to archaeology. It was an unconventional move, one met with bemusement and often ridiculed by the established academic community. But Schliemann was not one to be swayed by conventional wisdom. The academic establishment scoffed. Heinrich Schliemann, the merchant, delving into the sacred realm of classical archaeology? He had no formal training, no university degrees in the field. To them, he was an amateur, an eccentric, perhaps even a fool, pursuing a romantic fantasy. Most scholars believed Troy was purely mythical, or if it existed, its location was widely debated, with little consensus. Schliemann's radical notion of using Homer's epic as a literal guidebook was dismissed as naive, unscientific, a gross misinterpretation of poetry. He was an outsider, daring to challenge entrenched beliefs. Undeterred by academic snobbery, Schliemann remained resolute. His faith in Homer was absolute. He believed that the poet, though perhaps embellishing, had drawn from genuine historical memory. The Iliad was not just literature, it was a fragmented map, waiting to be read by someone willing to trust its ancient whispers. This fundamental belief, dismissed by others, would be his guiding principle. He would meticulously study the epic, looking for topographical clues, geographical descriptions, and any detail that might pinpoint a real location. His methods were unorthodox, yet singular in their dedication. Schliemann turned his gaze towards the Troad, the region of northwestern Anatolia described in the Iliad as the setting for the Trojan War. Several small mounds and tells dotted the landscape, ancient habitation sites rising subtly from the plains. Traditional scholarly theories pointed to a site called Bunarbashi, but Schliemann was unimpressed. Its distance from the sea, its lack of a suitable plain for battles, and its limited water sources didn't align with Homer's narrative. He sought a different place, one that resonated with the epic's vivid descriptions. His journey was just beginning. One particular mound caught his attention: Hisarlik. It was a modest hill, dismissed by many as insignificant, or at best, the site of a later Roman town. But Schliemann saw something else. Its strategic location, commanding views of the plains, proximity to the sea in ancient times, and presence of ample water sources, began to align with Homer's descriptions. More importantly, early surveys had noted traces of very ancient pottery. Could this unassuming hill hide the monumental city of legend? His instinct, honed by a lifetime of ambition, urged him forward. This was the spot. In 1871, Schliemann began his audacious excavations at Hisarlik. He employed hundreds of local laborers, moving vast quantities of earth with little regard for meticulous archaeological practice. His primary goal was to reach the lowest, oldest layers, convinced that Troy lay deep beneath the Roman and Hellenistic settlements. It was a brutal, almost destructive approach by modern standards, but driven by a singular purpose. The shovels broke ground, tearing through centuries of accumulated debris, seeking not just ancient stones, but the very essence of a legend. The true scale of the site was yet to be revealed. What Schliemann quickly discovered was not a single city, but many. Hisarlik was a vast archaeological tell, a mound built up over millennia by successive settlements. Each layer represented a distinct city, built upon the ruins of its predecessor, sometimes after periods of destruction or abandonment. He identified multiple Troys, numbered from Troy I at the bottom to Troy IX at the top. It was a dizzying revelation. The legendary city was not a static entity, but a dynamic, evolving site, a testament to continuous human occupation for thousands of years. But which layer was Homer's Troy? Amidst the deep trenches and scattered debris, monumental walls began to emerge. Massive stone fortifications, gates, and ramparts, hinting at a powerful, well-defended city. These were not the flimsy structures of a forgotten village, but the impressive architecture of a significant urban center. Schliemann, driven by his singular vision, equated these robust defenses with Homer's description of well-built Troy. He was convinced he was closing in on the legendary stronghold, the very walls that once resisted the Achaean forces. The sheer scale of what he unearthed was undeniable. Schliemann, still very much focused on Homer, believed he had found the city of King Priam in the layer he designated Troy II. This was a fortified settlement with impressive walls, but its dating seemed too early for the traditionally accepted timeframe of the Trojan War. His methods, though revolutionary in their boldness, lacked the precision of modern archaeology. He often dug through layers quickly, sometimes damaging later strata to reach what he considered the true Troy. Yet, his relentless pursuit of the Homeric city was about to yield an astonishing, if controversial, discovery. On May 31, 1873, an incredible find was unearthed. Near a massive stone wall in the Troy II layer, Schliemann's team discovered a cache of glittering artifacts. He famously claimed he sent his wife, Sophia, away so he could unearth it himself, secretly, to protect it from the Turkish authorities. It was a dramatic, perhaps fabricated, narrative, but the treasure was undoubtedly real. This moment solidified his conviction: he had found the lost riches of Priam, the legendary king of Troy. The world was about to hear of Troy's existence, not from poetry, but from undeniable gold. The cache, dubbed Priam's treasure, was magnificent. It included thousands of gold beads, rings, earrings, elaborate diadems, silver vases, and bronze shields. These weren't crude, utilitarian objects, but sophisticated works of craftsmanship, indicating a wealthy and advanced civilization. The sheer quantity and beauty of the artifacts stunned the world. For the first time, tangible evidence, shining with ancient splendor, seemed to confirm the riches described by Homer. This was not just a city, but a kingdom of considerable power and artistry. The news spread like wildfire. Schliemann triumphantly declared that he had found Priam's very own treasure, hidden away as Troy fell. The image of his wife, Sophia, adorned with the golden diadem, became iconic. It was a romantic, compelling story, perfectly aligning with his lifelong quest. However, later archaeological analysis would reveal a more complex truth. The Troy II layer, where the treasure was found, predated the likely timeframe of the Trojan War by over 1,000 years. While a stunning find, it was not the treasure of Homer's Priam. The legend had perhaps misled his interpretation, even as it guided his shovel. The discovery brought both fame and furious controversy. Schliemann's methods were crude. He used dynamite, indiscriminately tore through layers, and documented poorly. He illegally smuggled Priam's treasure out of Ottoman Turkey, sparking a bitter international dispute over ownership that continues to this day. His romanticized narratives, often embellished for dramatic effect, further clouded the scientific validity of his work. Yet, despite his flaws, Schliemann had achieved the impossible. He had proven that a magnificent, ancient city existed at Hisarlik. His blunderbuss approach forced the world to reconsider Homer. Schliemann's relentless pursuit of Troy changed archaeology forever. He demonstrated that ancient myths could, in fact, contain kernels of historical truth, inspiring a new generation of scholars to look beyond the purely literary. While his methods were heavily criticized, his discoveries were undeniable. His work forced classical studies to reconcile epic poetry with tangible ruins. But Schliemann was just the beginning. The true, complex story of Troy, its many destructions and rebuildings, would require decades of meticulous work by subsequent archaeologists, moving beyond the romantic quest for Priam's treasure. After Schliemann's death, his protégé, Wilhelm Dörpfeld, a trained architect, continued the excavations at Hisarlik. Dörpfeld brought a much-needed scientific rigor to the site. His systematic approach, focusing on stratigraphy and careful documentation, allowed for a clearer understanding of the multiple layers of Troy. He meticulously re-examined Schliemann's findings, correcting earlier mistakes and establishing a more accurate chronology for the various cities built on the tell. The site, once a chaotic dig, began to reveal its history in a more ordered, comprehensible fashion. Dörpfeld's work, and later that of Carl Blegen in the mid-20th century, refined the understanding of Hisarlik's 9 distinct city layers. Each layer, labeled Troy I through Troy IX, represented a different era, a different city, with its own unique characteristics, some prosperous, others destroyed by war or fire. It became clear that the Troy of Homer's epic was not a single, isolated entity, but one specific manifestation within a long and complex history of occupation. The challenge now was to pinpoint precisely which of these layers could correspond to the legendary Trojan War. Through painstaking analysis, archaeologists eventually narrowed down the most likely candidate for Homer's Troy. It wasn't Troy II, as Schliemann believed, but Troy VIH or Troy VIIA. Troy VIH was a magnificent, heavily fortified city, dating to the late Bronze Age, around 1700 to 1250 BCE, a plausible era for the Trojan War. It showed signs of a violent destruction, possibly by earthquake, but perhaps also by human conflict. Troy VIIA, built directly on its ruins, also showed widespread destruction by fire around 1180 BCE, a date that aligns more closely with ancient traditions of the war. The debate continued: earthquake or Achaean siege? Further evidence supporting a historical Troy emerged from the wider Aegean world. Archaeological finds, particularly pottery styles, revealed strong connections between Hisarlik and the powerful Mycenaean civilization of mainland Greece during the late Bronze Age. Mycenaean pottery, often found in Troy VIH and VIIA, indicated trade and cultural exchange between the two regions. This suggested that the Greeks of Homer's epic, the Achaeans, were indeed contemporaries and active participants in the same sphere of influence as the inhabitants of Troy. The archaeological record slowly began to fill in the historical context. Adding another layer of intrigue was the discovery of ancient clay tablets on Crete and mainland Greece, inscribed with a mysterious script. For decades, it remained undeciphered, a silent language from a lost civilization. This script, later named Linear B, offered a tantalizing glimpse into the administrative records of the Mycenaean world. Could these tablets, once legible, provide a direct link to the Greek side of the Trojan War, even mentioning places or people from Homer's epic? The decipherment would be a monumental intellectual achievement, unlocking voices from the distant past. In the 1950s, a brilliant young architect named Michael Ventris, aided by classical scholar John Chadwick, finally cracked the code of Linear B. The tablets, to the astonishment of the academic world, were early forms of Greek. They revealed mundane administrative details, inventories of livestock, records of tribute, lists of personnel. But crucially, they contained names of places and individuals that bore striking resemblances to those mentioned in Homer. Names like Achaea, the collective term for the Greeks in Homer, appeared, strengthening the link between the Mycenaean world and the epic. The Greek language itself was far older than previously thought. The decipherment of Linear B confirmed the existence of a sophisticated, organized Mycenaean civilization that flourished in the Late Bronze Age. The tablets, despite their bureaucratic nature, provided a tangible link to the Achaeans of Homer. They revealed a society capable of large-scale organization, resource mobilization, and potentially, distant military expeditions. While no tablet explicitly mentioned the Trojan War, the linguistic and cultural connections were too significant to ignore. The people who fought against Troy, as depicted by Homer, were now glimpsed in their own historical records, however indirectly. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for a historical Troy came from another powerful Bronze Age empire, the Hittites. Their vast archives, discovered in modern-day Turkey, contained diplomatic correspondence, treaties, and historical records that shed light on the political landscape of Anatolia during the 2nd millennium BCE. Within these ancient texts, scholars found references to a land called Walusa and a city called Tarusa. Could these foreign names, preserved on clay, be the Hittite equivalents of Homer's Ilios and Troy? The linguistic parallels were too strong to dismiss as mere coincidence. The puzzle pieces began to fit. The identification of Walusa with Ilios, another name for Troy in Homer, and Tarusa with Troy has become a cornerstone of the argument for a historical Trojan War. Hittite texts place Walusa in northwestern Anatolia, precisely where Hisarlik stands. Furthermore, they describe Walusa as a powerful kingdom, often in conflict or alliance with the Mycenaeans. This narrative, independently recorded by a major Bronze Age power, eerily mirrored the geopolitical context of the Iliad. The ancient names, once distant whispers in epic poetry, now found grounding in the official records of a formidable empire. Perhaps most astonishing is a Hittite treaty from around 1280 BCE, signed with a ruler of Walusa named Alexandru. This name bears a striking resemblance to Alexandros, the alternative name for Paris in the Iliad, the very prince who abducted Helen and ignited the Trojan War. This potential link, a historical figure named Alexander ruling a kingdom identified as Walusa/Troy, strengthens the notion that Homer's epic was not pure fantasy. It suggests that names, places, and even key figures from the legendary conflict may have had real-world counterparts, distorted yet preserved through the mists of time. So, did Troy really exist? The answer, unequivocally, is yes. But it was not the single, perfectly defined city of Homer's epic. It was Hisarlik, a monumental tell, housing a succession of powerful cities over millennia. The specific city that likely inspired the Trojan War was a late Bronze Age metropolis, probably Troy Vih or Troy Viia, a formidable fortress that controlled vital trade routes between the Aegean and Anatolia. Homer's tale, a masterpiece of poetry, drew upon genuine memories of a significant historical conflict, weaving fact with vivid, mythical embellishment. The epic was not a history book, but it was profoundly rooted in history. The archaeological revolution ignited by Schliemann, and meticulously continued by generations of scholars, revealed a Troy far more complex and enduring than anyone had imagined. It was a city that prospered, was destroyed, and rose again, time and time again. Its strategic importance, its wealth, and its powerful fortifications made it a magnet for both trade and conflict. The legendary siege, the clash of civilizations, was not merely a poet's fancy, but an echo of real struggles for power and control in the Bronze Age Aegean. The Layers of Hisarlik hold the true, intricate narrative of Troy's enduring legacy. Ultimately, the story of Troy stands as a testament to the power of human storytelling and the patient, painstaking work of archaeology. It shows us that even the grandest myths, the most fantastical tales, can hold kernels of truth, distorted and transformed by centuries of oral tradition and artistic license. Homer's Iliad remains a literary masterpiece, but now, it is also understood as a vibrant, albeit poetic, reflection of a real ancient world. The archaeological revolution didn't diminish the legend, it deepened it, giving it a tangible home in the earth. The quest for Troy proved that sometimes, reality is stranger, and more profound, than even the greatest fiction.